Welcome to this micro course by The Art of Scale. This course is called Navigating the Path to Scale, how to avoid the death spiral of scalability debt. I'm sure you're curious. Let's get into it and see what that death spiral is all about. My name is Jason. I'll be your guide in this micro course. Again, I'm co-founder of The Art of Scale and co-founder of other companies that have spent the last 20 years helping entrepreneurs like you to scale up. So let's get going. We're going to talk about a common story, scaling up, and then why that happens, what does the death spiral of scalability debt do, and then how to avoid the death spiral of scalability debt. That's the key over here. And then we'll introduce you to the Build This Next feature on artofscale.io, specifically designed to help you counteract the death spiral of scalability debt and navigate the path to scale successfully. Let's get into it. You know, we're venture capitalists and small business investors, amongst other things. So we see a lot of entrepreneurs pitch us for capital. We've backed a bunch, over 140, and you know, we see thousands of business plans every year. So stories like the one I'm about to tell you, we see a lot of them. Day one, entrepreneur pitches to us. They've been in business for a couple of years. And what we see is rapid growth, huge market, innovative product, highly differentiated, defensible, an impressive jockey. And so we're really excited. And this is the 1 in 100 that's a real stat that we are going to back. So we put money in, you know, shortly after we put money in, they close the deal with the nation's largest retailer and they're off to the races. They're scaling like crazy and it's beautiful. They are living the dream. Fast forward 4 years. Companies in distress, losing clients and staff. All relationships are toxic with investors, with board, with major retailer, entrepreneurs overwhelmed, burnt out, spiraling and stuck. Just doesn't know what to do about it. Now, a high percentage of these cases land up stuck there, stuck in this no man's land, in this hell on earth for years and years and years. A smaller but still meaningful percentage of these, they fail outright. Now, what happened? How did things go from here, a really promising venture and jockey, to here, a complete disaster story? Before we talk about how we got there, I just need to break the bad news to you. If you're in the top kind of 1 to 2% of small businesses, that is rapid growth, you know, you're growing 20% plus year on year for multiple years. You know, if you're in that category, the bad news is there's a 70% plus chance that at some point that story is you. It's your story. You're stuck in a no man's land, a hell on earth, where you're just trapped in a hornet's nest, a rabbit warren of catch-22s, and you know, you just use all your time and energy keeping going and keeping the business going all day, every day, and it shouldn't have been this way. That's 70% of the most promising small businesses eventually get trapped there. How does this happen? So let's talk about how it happens. And the answer is the death spiral of scalability debt. What is scalability debt? Well, as your company scales, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, more revenue, more headcount, more offices, more products, so too should your scalability. In other words, your capacity as an organization to manage that size. The bad news is for most small businesses, particularly ones led by founders, leadership team, scaling a company for the first time, the scalability does not match the scale. And that leads to an enormous gap called scalability debt. Scalability debt is the deficit of scalable systems, processes, structures, management talent and experience that you need in order to manage a company at your current scale and complexity. The things you need but don't have, that's your scalability debt. Now, the reasons this exists are quite simple. Firstly, most small businesses that scale are led by people who've never built a company before from the ground up. But secondly, there's a trick. You're almost trapped because when you start building a company, the absence of scalable systems, processes, and structures actually helps you. It gives you speed, and speed is the main reason you thrive and survive as a really early stage firm. The problem is, as you get bigger, you go beyond 3 people, 5 people, 10 people to 15 people. Speed starts turning into mess and stress because now the absence of systems, processes, and structures causes disasters. It's manageable at first, but as you continue to scale, stress and mess turns into chaos, And eventually, if you keep scaling without scalable systems, chaos will turn to death. Death of company, maybe death in metaphorical terms of many of your senior leaders who become burnt out very badly. All of that happens because of an absence of scalable systems, processes, structures, and management talent that can manage an organization of your current size. Now, if you want to be really simplistic about this, think about it. As a company grows, what you need to be doing is implementing scalable systems, processes, and structures one by one. Those are building blocks for scale. You need to be putting down those building blocks one by one so that you've got the scalability to match your scale so that you don't have much scalability debt. Now, what happens in the real world is as the company moves along the timeline and should be scaling into the promised land, but instead gets stuck somewhere and gets trapped in no man's land, what's happening is founder leaders, typically very entrepreneurial, visionary, brilliant what they've accomplished, seeing a market opportunity, innovating a product, attracting great talent, and getting the company to, a wonderful place through entrepreneurial leadership, visionary, innovative, opportunistic leadership. They continue to lead that way, and that is the problem. Because on the path to scale, there comes a point, and it's typically between 10 and 20 headcount, where entrepreneurial leadership needs to shift to scale up leadership. You need to retain that entrepreneurial energy and flair, but build on top of that company building, enterprise building. You need a leadership team that's intentionally putting down the building blocks for scale. That is building, designing, implementing, building, and operating scalable systems, processes, and structures, and building a scalable management team. But unfortunately, because most first-time founders have just never done this before, they don't know that they've got to do this. And so they don't. And so those scalable systems, processes, and structures that they should be building don't get built. Scalability debt grows until it gets out of control and it becomes a death spiral. There's just so much chaos, you never have the time to now build the scalable systems, and it becomes a vicious cycle that you're trapped in. That's the death spiral. So if that is what the death spiral of scalability debt is, so how do you avoid the death spiral of scalability debt? Well, we've already given you the nutshell. As the company scales, leaders need to intentionally put down the right building blocks for scale over time. And those building blocks are scalable systems, processes, structures, and managerial talent that can manage a company of the scale and the scale that you're becoming. But how practically do you do that? Well, the best way to do this is really to do it in conjunction, in harmony with harnessing a scalable management system. And so if you already have a system to formulate objectives and key results every quarter for the company, those objectives typically are financial, the revenue or profitability, or customer, win X new customers, or achieve such and such a net promoter score, or product or operations or people objectives. If you already have got a business rhythm to formulate those objectives every quarter, then all you do is piggyback on that. Piggyback on your existing system of formulating 90-day goals, but just add a category of goals, scalability goals, or OKRs. So have a lens when you formulate quarterly goals to very specifically lock in goals that make your company more scalable by building a more scalable strategy, a more scalable team, more scalable systems and processes, and attracting the capital you need for scale. That is how you systematically address scalability debt and make sure that you don't fall into a scalability death spiral. Okay, now that's still quite a high level answer, and there is a what if here. What if we don't have a 90-day goal setting or 90-day OKR rhythm in our business? Well, guess what your first scalability project should be? Implement your 90-day OKR system to formulate 90-day OKRs every 90 days, and then next, pick the next scalability project, and then just rinse and repeat every quarter. Every quarter, you prioritize one or two scalability projects, you turn that into a goal or set of OKRs for the quarter, and that becomes part of your 90-day OKRs, and you do that every single quarter. After 5 years, you've had 20 quarters of laying down the building blocks for scale. You've got a really different company to the company you had 5 years ago. So to summarize, don't just do the work in the business, which is, your tactical goals. Also do the work on the business, which is building the building blocks for scale. So if that's, in basic terms, how you avoid the scalability death spiral. Well, how do you choose what projects to do when? Well, that's exactly what we've built the Build This Next feature for in artofscale.io, to give you exactly that answer. It's in some ways simple if you're building a building. You put up the foundations, and then you put up the structure, and then you just lay the bricks from the bottom to the top. Unfortunately, building a company isn't that simple, because there is no visual kind of bottom-up process. What system do you put down next? What structure do you put down next? Where do you invest in scalable leadership next? It's a really hard question to answer, and typically how you answer this question is from experience, scaling multiple companies and studying how you scale a company. And if you don't have that, then it's through seasoned scale-up leadership that's coaching you. But that's expensive. And so instead of that expensive process, what we've done is we've built the Build This Next feature in the Art of Scale that will tell you 4 main things. 1, what should you build next? 2, how do you do it? What project should you implement in order to close the gap? 3, what content will help you do it? And 4, what tools can you use to apply that content in your business? So that's what the Build This Next feature will do. Why don't you check it out? We recommend simply doing an X-ray on your business using the Build This Next feature, and then every single quarter use the Build This Next feature to pick your top 1, 2, or 3 scale-up projects and adding those into your quarterly OKRs. And that is how you beat the scalability death spiral as you scale up. So why don't you head over to the Scale This Next feature and check it out right now. There'll be an onboarding video that will show you how it works, and you just get going with an X-ray on your business and then picking your top 1 project and execute on it in the next 90 days. Good luck. We'll see you in the next micro course. Take care.